All right, let's get right into it. If you're a property investor here in the UK, or hey, even just thinking about it, there's one piece of planning regulation you absolutely have to get your head around. It's called an Article 4 direction, and believe me, understanding it can be the difference between a project that flies and one that completely fails to launch. So you might think it's pretty simple, right? You find a nice big house in a great location and think, perfect, I'll just turn this into an HMO, a house in multiple occupation, and watch that rental yield shoot up. But what if I told you there's this kind of hidden rule, like a tripwire, that could stop your entire project dead in its tracks before you even start? Well, guess what? There is. So let's pull back the curtain on what this rule is all about. First things first, we're going to break down exactly what an Article 4 direction is, and more importantly, how it actually works. Okay, so what does this actually mean? The best way to think about it is like this. Permitted development rights are kind of like the default settings on your phone. They're all the things you're normally allowed to do to your property. Right out of the box, no special permission needed. An Article 4 direction. That's when the local council steps in and basically applies a custom override for a specific area, taking away one of those automatic rights. And the change that gets targeted most often is this one right here. See, normally you have a permitted right to change a standard family home that's a C3 property into a small HMO for 3 to 6 people, which is a C4. An Article 4 direction just removes that automatic right. It means you now have to go through the full planning permission process to do it. So you have to ask, why would a council even want to do this? It's not just about creating more paperwork for the sake of it. There's a very real logic behind it when you look at it from their perspective. It really is all about balance. At its core, it really boils down to two main things. On one hand, councils are trying to stop certain streets or entire neighborhoods from becoming packed with short-term transient rentals. And on the other, they're trying to make sure there are enough family homes to go around, to maintain a stable, balanced community. And this isn't just some abstract idea. I mean, look at this quote from a Birmingham City Council report. It gives you a really clear picture of the real-world problems they're dealing with. When this report was published, Birmingham had over 6,000 HMOs, and local residents were, understandably, getting concerned about the impact on everything from parking to community spirit. That's the kind of pressure that forces a council to take action. And it's not always for the same reason either. Councils use Article 4 as a pretty flexible tool. In a city like Leeds, it might be about making sure there's enough housing for families in those really popular student areas. But somewhere else, it could be about practical things like parking spaces and bin collections, or even preserving the unique look and feel of a historic neighborhood. Now, you might be sitting there thinking, okay, so this is just for a few specific hotspots, right? Well, let's zoom out a bit, because the reality is this rule has become a super common feature of the UK's planning landscape. We're not talking about just a handful of places. We are talking about dozens and dozens of councils. Seriously, if you're looking to invest in almost any big town or city in the UK, the chances are pretty high you're going to come across an Article 4 direction. It's just something every urban investor has to be ready for now. And just to add another layer of fun, councils don't all apply it in the same way. You can see here, cities like Birmingham, Manchester, and Nottingham have just put a blanket rule across their entire city. But then you've got places like Bristol and Leeds that are much more surgical about it, only applying the rule to specific neighborhoods where the concentration of HMOs is already really high. London is the perfect example of this complexity. I mean, the rules can literally change from one street to the next when you cross a borough line. Some boroughs, like Croydon or Newham, have a citywide Article 4, but then others, like Ealing or Southwark, only have it in certain spots. The big takeaway here is you can never, ever assume. You have to check. Which, of course, brings us to the most important bit. We know what it is, we know why it's there, so what do you as an investor actually do about it? Let's get into a practical action plan. This is the million-dollar question, isn't it? You found a property, it looks like a great deal, you're getting excited, but you have to know if this major hurdle is standing in your way. So how do you find out for sure? Thankfully, it's actually pretty straightforward. Your first stop should always be the source, the local council's own website. Head over to their planning section and just search for Article 4 direction. What you're looking for is the official legal document, and this is the most important part, the map that shows the exact boundaries. Now, if you just want a quick initial look, there are also some handy online tools out there that can give you a fast answer. Okay, here's a real pro tip for you. It is not enough to check the rules as they are today. You have to know what's coming tomorrow. You see, councils have to give notice before they bring in an Article 4. Places like Preston, Warrington, and Darlington have already announced future start dates. This creates this incredible, time-sensitive window of opportunity for investors, a chance to lock in a valuable asset before the rules change. So if you find yourself in this situation, you have to move fast. Step 1, find the exact date the new rule goes live. Step 2, and this is crucial, you must establish use as a C4 HMO before that date. That means you need at least 3 unrelated tenants actually living in the property the day before it all kicks in. And finally, don't just do it, prove it. Immediately apply for something called a certificate of lawfulness to get the council's official stamp of approval. If you pull this off, you can lock in a much higher rental yield and property value for years, turning what was a good investment into a truly great one. So, after all that, what is the single most important thing to remember? It's this. Article 4 is not a ban on HMOs. It's not saying you can never do this. All it's doing is changing the process. It moves the conversion from something you could just do to something that now requires full planning permission. Yes, it's a higher hurdle to clear, for sure, but it's not an impassable wall. And that kind of leaves us with one final thought to chew on. This whole regulation is a balancing act, isn't it? It's trying to weigh the needs of the wider community against the rights of property owners and investors. So the question for you is, in your local area, do you think the council has actually managed to get that balance right? It's definitely something we're thinking about.